than practical, way more than merely factual. If you wanna know the secrets of a life, it's free. Listen to girls behaving metaphysically. Listen to girls behaving metaphysically.
Welcome to Girls Behaving Metaphysically. Your hosts are two girls who believe that life is awesome, that laughter heals, and that it's possible to find deep spiritual insights in everyday experience. Join Robin Rice and Sumaya Wood for this week's adventure.
Hey, hi everyone. Happy Friday. I'm Robin Rice.
And I am not Sumaya Wood.
This is Gil Olmsted, and we are Girls Behaving Metaphysically with a guest host. So, just for anybody who's wondering, Sumaya is not here this week. She has traveled to the East Coast to be with her dad. So we're sending lots of love and good vibes for them to have a happy, healthy get-together. And my co-host has graciously agreed to step in, who is also my husband. So he's not a girl, but he likes them. So that counts. Anyway.
She used to call me one, so don't worry about it.
Anyway, that's another topic. And we're so excited to be here with you today. We're so excited for our guests. But first, before that, if you're joining us, please sign into the chat. Let us know where you're calling from. Joining us from, and just put hashtag where you're from. And if you see it now or on the replay, put hashtag replay. And I think that's what I have to tell you for now.
Are you excited?
I'm excited for many reasons. I'm excited because it's baseball season. And that makes me feel excited. That makes me feel like life is normal, and that, I don't know, that just makes me feel like the world is doing something right. So I'm very excited about that. And yes, I'm a Dodger fan, and there will be no hating. That's what I have to say. So without further ado, let me say that our guest, we are so excited to have her. As you know, our month has been spring cleaning. And so she is our final guest of the month because her book is called Manna.
The Manna Paradigm Shift.
The Manna Paradigm Shift. And what that's really about is getting connected with our higher self and making a clean sweep. And we felt like she'd be perfect for the end of the month because we've gone through various stages of spring cleaning with you and letting go of clutter in our minds and in our bodies. And our guest is Dr. Davina Kotulski, and she is going to wrap that up with just some extra added tips and new ways to look at different things that will take us forward.
So can I just say a word? She's a licensed psychologist, a life coach, an adopt-based spiritual practitioner, award-winning author and speaker, and nationally known LGBT rights leader. She's done lots of work in lots of areas, and to us, she is a really good friend, and we appreciate her. So we're happy to invite her to be a part of this day.
Yes, we are. So, I should make a disclaimer. I am doing the technology for the first time, so hold on to your seats. We may have a few rocky moments. And yet, there she is.
Hey, Robin and Gil, thank you for having me here. And Sumaya, wherever you are, prayers and blessings to you.
So, Davina, your book is chock full of so much information on so many levels.
Thank you. Yeah. So the book, The Manna Paradigm Shift, is a combination of cutting edge psychology and ancient wisdom teachings. So we're talking about spring cleaning, and this book is based on a biblical story that occurred in the spring, if you will, or that we celebrate every spring, and that comes out of Passover. So it was when the Hebrews left Egypt. So if you're familiar with Passover, the Hebrews were making their escape from enslavement by Pharaoh, and they went off into the desert without food, and they were hungry, and they cried out to God, and God gave them manna from heaven. And manna from heaven is this, it can be seen as food, or it can be seen as the spiritual nourishment or sustenance that we need to get us through day by day.
So what inspired you to use that, by the way? I mean, it was, I realized when I was looking, I was like, I don't know, why did she go straight to a biblical story like that? And what was it from that, or how did you get there?
I think part of it was, I was in Italy once in the Jewish ghetto, and there are these hidden synagogues, and they have, you can't have any images of humans in the Jewish faith, because that would be considered a false idol.
Wow.
But they had these sketchings of a hand, with manna coming down from heaven, and it just really stuck with me, that in so many situations, that when we're on the spiritual path, we don't know what's ahead of us, and we can't trust the past per se, but that God, Spirit, the universe gives us what we need, moment by moment, one day at a time. And that resonates with me, because personally, I've been in, many situations where life was uncertain. At one point I was called to, spiritually called to leave a job. It was when this recession began. And I learned that God gives you what you need one day at a time, and you can't let yourself stay stuck in fear. But this allegory of manna is it's a promise that when we trust Spirit, what we need will show up. And I've seen that in my life again and again.
And does it always show up when and how you expect it to?
Not at all. No. Something you need always shows up, but what we think we need and how we want it to show up, that's really different. So the ego wants things a certain way, right? It wants the job, it wants a certain house, it wants a certain partner, whatever it is. That's what the ego wants to know, and wants the details, and wants to decide. But Spirit, who is all powerful and all seeing and all knowing, that energy knows what to give us, that our soul, what our soul really needs moment by moment. And so it can, it is always a surprise, and often a pleasant one.
Well, you tell the story in the first part of the book about leaving the job and changes, and I know at one point, we were with you and sitting in a circle in your little bitty apartment.
Yes.
This is a couple years after you've left, at least. The job. And I'm thinking, as I hear the story now, I'm thinking, wow, how did you get through all of that? That when it wasn't looking like you thought it should, or you'd hoped it would, or whatever.
Yeah, I had at least 3 big moments in my life. Once I was spiritually conscious, that showed me the demonstration of manna. One was when I chose to leave my job. I worked at a prison. Talk about imprisonment. I worked at a prison for 12 and a half years, and I decided I needed to leave it and start a private practice, and to not give my power away to the government, but to trust that I could start a private practice, and that, that the universe was calling me out of that position and leaving behind that security, that regular paycheck, all of those things. So that was one big moment. And I do talk about that in the book. Another moment that I think you're referring to is when I realized that I needed to end my marriage. And, it was just very clear. Spirit was showing me the way, but I didn't know what it was going to look like. And there was a friend of mine had a basement apartment suddenly available that she was renting out. And I decided, I just felt it. It was like, say yes to this. And it all happened very quickly. And then there I was living in someone's basement apartment and not my home that I'd purchased. And it was a very powerful time of leaning into Spirit. I mean, I'm always leaning into Spirit, but I think when we're in crisis, or when we are doing more prayer and meditation, we lean in and spirit, moves us along. And so, yeah, we were sitting in that apartment. And I thought it was going to be a temporary place. I didn't know how long I was going to be there. And even at one point, the ceiling fell in on that place. I mean, there's some stories. What was happening was the house ended up being under construction, and my life was under construction. And so there was a lot of matching and mirroring going on. But what I found was that, again, spirit, kept finding the way for me of where I needed to be to, end that marriage of 15 years, and wasn't easy. And yeah. I'm not sure if I answered your question. I hope I did.
No, I was just realizing that, what I hear from you and what I heard in the story and what I personally relate to is this idea that, for instance, you knew you needed to say yes to that apartment, but it really wasn't your choice in a sense. It wouldn't have been your mind's first choice for what you needed to be doing. It certainly wasn't your first choice to be ending your marriage, and then, but the seeming, the where you are now and where you were then, you had to come through something to get to where you are. And that reminds me too of the story of the Israelites in the desert, and they had to rely on the manna coming down because that's all there was.
Right. Yeah. And I think that what I've experienced, and I talk about some miracles that as I was going on book tour with It's Never Too Late to Be Yourself and doing workshops, I was hearing more stories of other people's miracles that when they, were in any particular situation, how they leaned into faith, and how God, or the universe or spirit showed up for them. What I saw was that, somehow a certain amount of money would expand. Like, I don't know how it worked, but it did. Like, before it was $100,000 a year. Now it's $30,000 a year, but still everything's getting paid. It's all working out. I don't know how, I don't know why, but it is, right? Yeah. It's like things like that happen that you don't, sometimes suddenly it's like people are giving you things for free, or, you get, somebody was talking the other day, got a check for $6,000 in the mail, and unexpectedly. Things like that happen when you follow your heart and you're living your truth and you're leaning into spirit. So I've seen that over and over again. I've had the experience of walking across the street, walking into a cafe, and somebody said, "You have something sticking to your shoe." What? Oh my God, gross. I look down, it's $100 bill. Does this belong to anybody else? No, it's mine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I just want to say hi to John from Richmond. And John says, yes, it's a great reminder to lean into spirit. Lean in on spirit. Yeah. Yeah. So it really is.
I have a little story like that. I got a car given to us recently, and I was taking apart the center console to look at something, and I found another $20. It was like it just got better and better.
Yeah, and life shows up for us like that. And I think why I wanted to write the book was people are afraid to make changes. They stay in toxic situations, whether it's, they don't want to leave a house because they have rent control, but there's like horrible neighbors, or they don't want to leave a job, but it's a toxic job, or they don't want to leave a toxic relationship. They're afraid to make changes, or they're afraid to go to follow their hearts and pursue a career that's, really meaningful to them, and share their gifts and talents. And they're afraid because they're afraid they won't survive. And so we put all of our faith in money and in man-made ideas. And that's not leaning into spirit, right? That's giving away our power. And I think of man and these man-made fears as Pharaoh. That's Pharaoh, right? So if you go back to the Passover story, the Israelites or the Hebrews are enslaved to Pharaoh. They're working for Pharaoh. They're afraid to leave because they'll have to wander in the desert. Uncertainty. What's going to happen? as long as they're enslaved, they know what they're doing that day. They know where their food's going to come from, but they've given away their power.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is what is happening for many of us, right? People are afraid to make good choices for themselves, and they stay in bad situations because they're afraid. And so I think of those fears as like pharaohs, those limited thoughts, those fears of scarcity and lack, limitation. That's Pharaoh operating in our life. Also, it's very tragic, but what we're seeing and what we've seen since the Great Recession and even before then is that there's more of a divide going on between the haves and the have-nots. And there's more of a master class and there's more of a servant class, economically speaking. And so we keep giving away our power and doing more for less for others and neglecting ourselves, putting profit before people, putting profit before our own well-being. And I am frankly disgusted by that. And I wanted to write this book because I want people to know there is a way out of this. And that way is through choosing freedom for yourself. So part of what the Manna Paradigm Shift is you choose freedom. You make a choice. I am no longer going to, let myself be exploited. I'm not going to stay in a bad situation. I may not know how this is going to change, but I'm going to choose freedom. And then the next thing you do is you turn away from the circumstances. You just say, okay, yep, those circumstances are there. All those things are there, but I'm not going to let those thoughts, those fears take over me. I'm going to connect with the higher mind, a higher consciousness. I may not know how to do it, but God does, the universe does. And the universe is my source, my supply, my sufficiency. So I'm going to lean into that and I'm going to trust. I don't need to know what's going to happen 2 weeks from now. I don't even need to know how it's going to work out for me tomorrow. I just need to be in today, meditate, let go, and trust, and do my spiritual practices.
Yeah, that's great. And because I was going to ask you, how do you really do that when you're in fear, when you're in anxiety, when you have depression, any of those things? But before I do that, I want to say hi to Bonnie, who's says happy to be here with y'all. Even though she said y'all, I want you to know she's joining us from Ireland.
Oh, wow.
And then John says, and source is our supply. Love this message, Davina.
Thank you, John. And John, you've been my manna at various times in the past too. We've shown up for each other too. So thank you. And that's the thing too. Like, we are blessings in each other's lives, right? Like someday, I might be your manna or you might be my manna, and that means like, you've picked up the phone, you've helped somebody out, you've given somebody a hug. That can be manna too. It's whatever gets you through. And we get really focused on, we need certain things, but when you are, okay, so you asked the question of what do you do when you're in depression and fear, right? You need to create an upward spiral. And I call that creating a manna mindset. So there are things that you can do that help you create that upward spiral to connect with that higher consciousness.
Yeah. And John says, this is so freeing. And Bonnie says, thank you for the steps to follow to free ourselves from a life we no longer enjoy. Yes, Bonnie.
Yes.
I saw that and you've been alluding to portions of it, but I like that you had the nine fundamentals to move towards this paradigm shift. And I know you're describing them, but I'm just letting the folks know that in the book it describes each of those and really goes into a little more detail on each one.
Yeah, I wanted to write something that was accessible because, sometimes we read books and they talk about something, but they don't actually give you steps to get there. And I wanted something very, very practical that people could do because, again, when we do our intentional spiritual practices, we do positive self-talk, we engage in meditation, we do the things that we know that work, then we can make the changes. But it's not just an esoteric thing. It sounds esoteric. What is this manna thing? But there are specific things that you can do that help you connect with that elevated vibrational frequency. Here's how you create an elevated frequency. Here's how you create an elevated vibration. Because people will say, what do you mean a higher vibration or a higher frequency? Well, this is what this means, and this is how you get there.
So does that mean you end up pretending that things aren't happening in your life that are making your stomach tight and whatever else?
Not at all. Not at all. So yeah, great question. So no, you let yourself feel your feelings. You don't do spiritual bypass. You start where you're at and you spiral up. You just do what you need to do to move up and out of it. But you don't deny it. And if there are feelings there, you let the feelings come. You just don't make that your ultimate reality. So you don't make like, well, I'm afraid that, I only have this much money in my bank account. What does that mean? You don't make that your ultimate reality. It's kind of like there's a story I tell in the book about one of the women I met. It was in my workshop, the It's Never Too Late to Be Yourself workshop, when I was traveling up north. And she said that basically her husband died, and before he died, he had a heart attack and he had to be helicoptered out of their home to the hospital. And she had enormous bills. They did not have health insurance for him. And then he died in the hospital, and she had over $250,000 worth of hospital bills. And the bills would come in and she would just say, God, I don't know how I'm going to pay this, but I know you do. And she'd set them aside. And she had a little pile that said, for the universe. And she kept putting it in the inbox, for the universe, for the universe. And she happened to work for a company. And it turned out that the company that she worked for had a contract with that hospital. And so some people there were able to pull some strings and find ways to, pay off that debt through grants or whatever else. But they were in touch with her and they said, we just want to let you know, about your bills. And she said, oh my God, I know I need to get them paid. And they said, no, it's been taken care of.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that gave me God bumps.
Yeah.
But it's so true. I mean, and on a different, putting this, what it reminds me of in some ways is like when I was younger and I'd go see a psychic. I mean, when I was really young, like teens to early 20s. So we'd go, and of course, everything the psychic told us it was about whatever guy we liked and, money and whatever, something.
All the important things.
Yeah, the important things. I mean, and it wouldn't have mattered if she had, said it was about a squirrel. We would have been like, oh, but he's been really squirrely. I know it's him. So, but anyway, going to a psychic, and we'd take notes or record it. And the thing I always used to tell people is, yeah, you take notes and you read it and you look at it and you're amazed at how much they're in tune with whatever. And then I'd put it in my drawer and put it away. It wasn't like I'd live every day going, when is this going to show up? When is Prince Charming coming? She said there was a man and that he was dark and tall and handsome and, or whatever. And it's kind of like it's kind of like creating the space to hold it, but not be run by it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's being open and available. And it's really about, it's about these three things. It's one, I can have something better. I don't have to stay in a bad situation or give all my power away to politicians or corporations, government, whatever it is. I do not have to live in fear. I can choose something different. I'm going to turn away from the fear. I'm going to do whatever I can to move away from that fear. I'm going to pray. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do my self-talk. I'm going to do my affirmations. I'm going to move my body. I'm going to connect with people. I'm going to surrender. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to give it to the universe. And then I'm going to lean into the universe. And I'm going to know that the universe has my back. And that is really it. But it's easy. However, or it sounds easy. However, it's a practice, right? It's a practice. And it's really about, just like affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment, or any aspect of faith, it's about keep going back to faith. It's like, okay, I give this to God, I'm taking it back. No, I don't trust you, God. I'm giving it to God again. Okay. But it's about giving it to the universe and trusting, and then being open and available to notice, oh, what is that phone call today? Right.
Right.
Yes.
So Bonnie's asking, are you saying faith is the key? And how does one strengthen faith? Good question, Bonnie.
It's a great question. Yes, faith is the key. And you do that by reminding yourself of miracles you've already experienced. You listen to the miracles that other people have experienced. And you remember when the universe has shown up for you. You remember it. You go back, because we have really short-term memory for miracles. We remember the bad stuff. Right? But you go back and you go, okay, I had a $100 bill stuck to my foot once. What was that about? Well, that was the universe. We have experienced miracles. And when we go back and we remember that, and then we are aware, we follow the leads, we follow the breadcrumbs. We just keep showing up. We know it may not look exactly like you want it to look, but it will work out. A friend of mine was looking for a place to live once, and they didn't get the place that they wanted. So but somebody else said, hey, I have a place for you to live for a couple months. If you want to live here for a couple months while you keep looking. And so they did that. They lived someplace for a couple of months, and then the perfect place showed up. And 2 months later, so when that was done, they found the place that they wanted to live, and they loved the in-between place. They actually really enjoyed being there. And then they found the perfect place. And then later, when that person and their partner split up, both people were able to still have a place in that area and to be close to their kids. So it actually worked in that way, right? So the universe was waiting, because the universe had more information, right? You could say the universe knew, hey, this marriage was going to end. So, let's figure out what's going to be the biggest and best for all involved here. So the universe is much more intelligent than we are. It can see more than we can, and it knows how to orchestrate things for our highest good.
So on some level, it's also, besides faith, it's also really about commitment, because you have to be committed to keep returning to that place, especially if I'm somebody who's in a depressed state or has anxiety and I don't have all these tools.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to want to just throw in the towel, as opposed to being like, okay, let me recenter, let me affirm once again that I am prosperous, I am abundant, I am,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a lot of commitment to stay in that place.
I would ask the question, though, or argue the point that it's a lot of commitment to tell our old story.
Mm.
And when I was listening to you talk about, the $100 foot, I remember the $100 bill stuck to my foot. I was like, I know people, and I'm sure I know myself as well. But where you hear how committed they are to telling the old story, but they don't tell the miracle story.
Mm-hmm.
They tell the other story.
Right.
So it's really not a shift it is a shift, but I'm saying in some sense, it's not a major shift in what we do. It's a shift in what we're choosing to focus what we're doing on.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Like we don't often ask each other, hey, tell me about something amazing that happened in your life.
Right.
Tell me a time where you were at the edge, and then boom, something happened, and a miracle changed your life. Tell me about that. We don't ask each other those questions. We talk about something crappy that happened.
Well, and that, because that's like familiar. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's the pattern,
Right. And we don't often believe things will get better. We often believe things will get worse. So, for example, I was sharing with you guys the other day that when I moved to Los Angeles, and I had prayed for a certain house, and it, like, the apartment, that I got was amazing. It had everything that I wanted. And 2 months after moving into it, relocating from the Bay Area to Los Angeles area, the landlord, or maybe it was 6 months in, the landlord put the house up for sale. And I was just like, oh my God, or I can't believe I just moved in here. This is the perfect place. And now it's up for sale. What? And I just got comfortable. I've just gone from living in this crappy apartment hovel that you guys were talking about, up in the Bay Area, to now this wonderful, perfect place where I live in LA. And now it's up for sale. And I just was like, okay, I got to pray this through. And it was like, for the highest good, this or something better, this or something better. And I told you, it was better. They sold the house. They sold it to people that were absolutely committed to us staying where we were living. So I didn't have to move out. The landlords were even nicer and the other landlords were so nice. The new landlords were even nicer, and they barely raised the rent.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so much of it has to do with what we think we know. We think like, oh man, I'm going to have to move again and this is going to happen. It's going to be like this. When in reality, the universe is going, here, this is your holding place. And, you'll be nurtured and comforted. So Bonnie says, thank you, Dr. Davina. Great advice. The universe has my back. A new mantra for me.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Thank you, Bonnie. And you're welcome too.
John says this show is an afternoon miracle.
In more ways than one. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
So when you said, we think we know, it's about thinking about the things we know. Like our experience is, our knowledge is that if I lose my job, I don't have money, therefore this happens and that happens, right?
Yeah.
And what clicked for me was your idea that we have to surrender. And that idea of surrender, sometimes I don't quite get, but I think anchoring on that thing of, I need to surrender that I don't know. I mean, I need to surrender what I think I know and just release that.
Yeah, because here's the thing. Things that we don't like are going to happen. But that doesn't mean that the universe doesn't love us and that they're not really ultimately for our highest good. Like, we want certain things to be a certain way, but that doesn't mean that that's actually good for us. So here's another example. Like I was really up-leveled, I'll use that word, when I relocated to Los Angeles, because what the universe was showing me was, hey, you got a lot of egoic attachments. We're going to show you, or, the universe is saying to me, I'm going to show you how to live from your soul and to really deepen your spirituality and your spiritual practices. So, there was a lot of kind of maybe what I might call spiritual bait and switch going on. And really, or if you think of a diamond, all of the pressure on it, the coal to create the diamond. And there were a lot of opportunities to up level and to deepen and to lean into the loving arms of spirit, right? Which is it's not something that I can physically touch, but when you keep doing your spiritual work, there are moments where, I have felt the physical presence of spirit. It's a palpable field around me, and it's good stuff. I don't always feel it, but it kind of comes and goes, and there are times when it's stronger. But I know it, and I know it's there, right? And then I have to remind myself. But anyhow, so one of the things that happened to me when I relocated to Los Angeles was I was coming down to start my practice over again. And, I built my practice. Then a couple of years later, now I'm building it again in a new place, so again, leaning into spirit, going from zero to, kind of starting over. But there was like a part-time job that I was going to get that, at one of the colleges down here. And so I was like, yeah, I'll get down there, I'll have this job, and then I'll build my practice. No sweat. So I got down here, and the job was basically guaranteed to me. It seemed like it was my job. And then there was a stall, and it was stalling, and I wasn't hearing from them. Like, what the heck's going on? And I hadn't started my private practice just yet because I didn't know what my hours were going to be there, and I needed to kind of figure that all out. And I didn't get the job. I was like, what? Like, yeah, you were number 2. And I'm like, wait, I didn't get the job. I just couldn't believe it. And I was like, my mind wanted to say, this is a bad thing. I didn't get the job, and you could, what's wrong with me? Why didn't I get a job? Oh my God, I'm not going to have any money. All of the fears. And I was just like, okay, what do I know to do? Table that. Just let that be. Do what you need to do. The fear is there. Feel it, move forward. Feel it and move forward. There's got to be a reason, even if I don't know what it is. This doesn't have to be the worst thing in the world. Just keep going forward. And so, I started my practice, got going. Here's what I can tell you. I can Monday morning quarterback it, but I know that's not the right metaphor here. But I can, with perspective, I can tell you why that was perfect. I learned that I could absolutely support myself in my own private practice without any crutch. I did not, because God was my boss, my CEO, whatever. I didn't need to have an intermediary. I didn't need to have a part-time job. I needed to be fully available to my practice. The universe knew exactly what it was doing. I didn't need the crutch of that. The other thing was that I found out later that the college was up to some really bad stuff.
Mm.
And they were using their psychology department in a really bad way. And they didn't hire me because I said some very specific things about the things that they were doing wrong. So they knew that they would have gotten in trouble had they hired me because they were up to some shady stuff. So the universe kept me from being involved in a scandal. Thank you, universe.
Yes.
And now it's just me. So I'm sure Robin and Gil will come back again into the show, but that's it. I'm just going to keep it going. So those are examples of, where the universe knows what's best for you. It doesn't look like it's what's best for you, and it feels like it's something personal, but it's not. It's the universe watching your back, watching out for you, and making sure that you're safe, and that your needs are met. So just remember that, if things don't look the way you think that they should look, it's okay. The universe has you. And I think the other thing about that is that don't just take the first thing that's offered to you because you're afraid that you're not going to have something. I talk about musical chairs in the book, and how as kids we're trained by games like musical chairs to think about scarcity and lack, and to rush and get our butt in the next thing, and to not have any space in between. And so sometimes we settle for less out of fear. And so don't do that. Trust that, just wait till something feels right. Don't just take something to have something. I hope that makes sense. And I am hoping that Robin and Gil will be joining us again here. This is the fun with technology, and I'm not able to answer any questions because I'm a guest here. So let's see. I'm going to text them, and then I'll just keep it going in just a second. Let's see. I know what I wanted to say. So you can get a free chapter of the book by going to the mannaparadigmshift.com. If you go to the mannaparadigmshift.com, you can download a free chapter of the book. I also have a 30-day make the Manna Paradigm Shift. It's the 30-day Make the Manna Challenge. 30-day Manna Challenge. So for 30 days starting April 1st, you will get 30 days of emails of inspiration and instruction of spiritual practices and how to create the Manna mindset. And there'll also be weekly check-ins that we'll do once a week. And that is $99 before April 1st. So if you go to the mannaparadigmshift.com, you can look into that, get a free chapter. You can also go to my website, davinakotulski.com, to learn more about the work that I do. And I just finished the audiobook So you'll be able to get the Audible version or the iTunes version probably also by April 1st if you want to do that. So I'm very excited about that. And I really feel like this is such an important book right now for these times because, we're at a time where we're putting profit before people. So many people are living with intense uncertainty. Well, we all are living with uncertainty with the COVID pandemic and the unemployment rates and everything that's going on. And so this book can help you to help yourself. So again, I'm really happy that I was able to get this book out and during this time period. I wish I could answer questions for you. And I wish I knew what to do next, but I'm just going to trust that everything is unfolding as it should be. And yeah, so let's see, what else do I want to tell you? Surrender, that's one of the principles. It's a very, very important principle. Just letting go, just trusting the universe. Another is the notion of rest and play. We heard that on the seventh day, God rested. And we live in a time where we're expected to just be working and be accessible all the time. And we really need to rest and rejuvenate. Studies have found that people that take breaks are ultimately more creative. They have access to more of their brains, and problem solving is better when you take a break. We need to rest. The United States works more hours and harder and doesn't take any vacations. It takes very few vacations. I think we have like 10 days of vacation compared to countries in Europe where they have 8 weeks of vacation. Most Americans work actually 50 hours a week. And you have other countries like, Italy where they work like 38 hours a week. France is something like 34. The Netherlands is 29. So our work-life balance is just, it doesn't exist. And yeah, there are countries like Japan and other places where people work even harder. But I don't think that we should ascribe, try to do work harder. I think we need to have more work-life balance, and that Americans need to make some better choices. And maybe this is why we have such health issues. High depression, high alcoholism, other type 2 diabetes, because we don't have time to slow down and cook and care for ourselves and exercise. So my one hope is that with this pandemic is that people will realize, hey, you know what, I don't want to work 60 hours a week and have a 2-hour commute, that they want to go back, and they want to find a way to have balance in their lives, and that they want to make different choices for themselves. So I'm hoping that that's going to be the case. All right. So Robin and Gil have let me know that they are not going to be able to get back in. So I just want to thank you all for being here, and thank them for having me on the show. Girls Behaving Metaphysically. And I want to just again invite you to check out the book, The Manna Paradigm Shift, at themannaparadigmshift.com. Download your free chapter. And if you like what you're reading, please consider joining me April 1st for the 30-day Manna Challenge. And again, you'll get an email in your box every single day. And then we'll have some Zoom weekly check-ins. Oh, look at that. They're back. They're back. All right. Cool. Just as I was getting ready to sign off, here you are. See how that works?
Well,
You're
hold
here.
on. I'm trying.
You're doubly here. So
Are we doubly here now?
yes, somehow you're here twice and your microphone's on twice. So you might need to exit one out. I'm not sure which one it is.
Done. Oh, I'm so sorry. I should be able to keep this one out.
Well, if you can't figure it out, we can just say thanks.
That sounds good.
And
That was good, Zoe.
Yeah, I don't know.
And that's the universe reminding us to surrender and let go. It's all good.
All right. Well, thank you, Davina. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Gil, for hosting. And I promise this will be better next week.
Thank you all. And, I think it was perfect. It's the perfect amount of time.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, bye.